Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the grayscale trusts. With that being said, let's get it. Okay, so I have actually watched roughly about 2/3 of the presidential debate. We're going to be making a separate video on that, just so y'all know, to kind of give you a synopsis of what we think about everything about Biden's campaign and about the debate between Trump and Biden and who we think is the better candidate and why, but we're not going to talk about that here. So not really quite done watching the debate yet, but getting pretty close. So keep an eye out for that. With that being said, let's start with LTCN. So you guys can see we did get above the trend line here. However, we still have to get above the EMAs and the resistance level. As you guys can see here, that is still weighing down on the buyers. Until we get above that, I mean, it's just simply not going to be clear skies. I can tell you all that right now. There is going to be some pushback from some bears and or potentially people taking a look at taking profit at these levels. So 24 to 27 was previously support. As you guys can see here, it kind of took off from that point, bounced again, and now we are potentially retesting as resistance. So I'm going to go now to the daily time frame, something I want to show you guys here on the daily. So we do have a MACD golden cross here. We did just come off of oversold territory from the RSI, and we did get above this trend line, technically speaking. But on the daily time frame, we do have a tweezer top here. So you guys will have to excuse me for all the coffee, and I just woke up. So there is a tweezer top. That's generally speaking bearish. These are both shooting star candles as well. Those are also bearish candles. So at the very least, I do expect some kind of retest of this trend line, then maybe a bounce. So now going back to the weekly, pretty much what we're looking at still is this trend line here of support, or maybe even this one. So basically, I would say somewhere probably between like $17 to maybe about $20 or so could potentially be support. I already went over what this level is, and then you have $54 up here. So if this top trend line holds and it goes all the way to the swing high, it'd be roughly about 170% gain. However, if it comes back down to this trend line down here and then goes all the way up to the swing high, it's a 210% gain. Now, keep in mind the all-time high for LTCN is $510. So that's a pretty massive gain from the current price. That's like a 25x or thereabouts. And that also does not include price discovery. So now if I go down here to the daily time frame on BCHG, we kind of have some indecision candles here. So BCHG doesn't yet know what it wants to do, but we do have golden crosses on the daily. We did also hit oversold on the daily as well, so that's a good sign. We got above the trend line, but still got to get above those EMAs and the resistance zone. So what flips from resistance then becomes support. What flips from support then becomes resistance. So we're in the support to resistance phase right now. We need to see a candle close get above this zone and above all these other things here in order to be truly bullish. We may see that next week. It kind of just depends. Again, there's been a lot of rumors floating around that July 2nd is going to be the listing of the spot Ether ETFs, but that remains to be seen. That news alone could push a lot of these grayscale trusts up in price, especially the Ethereum related ones like ETHE and ETCG. And also a lot of the altcoin related ones. So basically anything besides LTCN and BCHG will probably get the biggest move, but LTCN and BCHG will probably also get some alpha just based on the news if it does happen. So we'll have to wait and see. As of right now, support on this is still going to be down here between $7 to $8 in my opinion. I mean, you could count this support kind of as also a potential buy area, so somewhere between 8 to 10. So if you give yourself a rough range, maybe somewhere between $7 to $10. I'm not counting this as resistance because it's or a target because it's just simply too close to the price. So we'll say 18 to 20 and then all the way up here to 24. So if I just measure it from the current price to the swing high, you guys can see it's pretty large. So 132% move. However, if this thing does come back and retest support, which could happen, it would then move to nearly double, so 245%. There is instances where this thing does get a bullish breakout and then it gets pushed back down into kind of this wedge here, as you guys can see. But I mean, this thing is getting pretty close to the apex of the move. I mean, it's literally right there. I mean, we might have maybe one more week in between the support and the trend line before it has to make a decision. So it can only range around for so long. It can't do it forever. Eventually it does. After it's done coiling up, it does eventually have to make a move. So we have HZEN here. There is something else I also wanted to point out. I don't think I noticed this before, but there's also kind of a falling wedge here. So falling wedge is a bullish pattern. I would still say likely this support, I'm going to list this or relist this as support now. The support in this trend line will be kind of the where it coils into and then potentially breaks out or down. So HZEN, we had a breakdown and then a fake out. So basically it was, you could pretty much say this was a bear trap. So bears tried to sell it off and then bulls were just like, and just sucked this price straight back up right above where the bears would have likely wanted to sell off, which would be from this red EMA. So bears kind of got faked out there. As of right now, support is still going to be between 380 to 420. I would say, you look at $7 as your immediate target here. Then it becomes 8 and then 1050 after that. So just measuring from roughly around current support to, let's just say the first target would be 75, 76%, 106%, and then 165% respectively. Do keep in mind the target for a wedge pattern is the start of the wedge, which is all the way up here at 1050. ETCG, this thing is just kind of chopping around. It's not really doing much of anything. I suspect likely this is probably just going to bounce between 11 to 13 for a little while until we eventually get some news on the spot ether ETFs and then, or the listings, I should say, and then eventually it will squeeze to the upside. So the target I'd be looking at for here is at least the 1930, this previous swing high. If we go past that, you can see that there's quite a few targets. Actually, the next major target above and beyond that would be $42. So I'll just start with the first target here. I mean, you guys can kind of guesstimate what $42 would be. That'd be roughly about a 3.5x. So pretty huge move there. But from the current price to the swing high up here is 57% move. ETH, so potential double top here, as you guys can see. Likely we are going to pull back into the support. So support is between 25 to 29. And also there is a cup and handle pattern here that did actually confirm. So we had our cup and then the handle, and then we got this big, huge green candle breakout. So the target is all the way up here at $47. Oh, I do also want to reiterate, we still have our same positions here before I forget. As you guys can see, we haven't added anything, but we haven't sold anything yet either. Because I did have a question about that, and we're always going to do our best to try to keep you guys updated on any positions, if any positions that we add and or take away if they change. So anyways, assuming we get the pullback into support, which we may or may not, and then the swing all the way up to the target, which roughly is about all-time highs, would be about 76% move. A couple things I wanted to say about the ETH and ETCG too is the first thing is it may not necessarily come back and hit support. And I say that the reason why I say this on ETH is because if next week we get the listings from the DTCC website, which I think is what it's called, where there's listings for ticker symbols that go up for the ETH ETFs onto some of these different platforms like Fidelity and BlackRock and stuff like that, this thing could just zoom straight up to new all-time highs. It may not necessarily even come back and test previous support. But the second thing I wanted to say about the spot ether ETFs is I think part of the reason why it's taking so long for them to get listed is because I think that, and this is just pure speculation, I could be wrong about this, but I think that regulators, I think that they're aware of the cycle timing. Okay, I know it sounds crazy, but a lot of Bitcoin whales probably are doing some donations to these politicians. I wouldn't be surprised. Of course, that's also speculation. I don't know that for sure to be true, but my guess is that they're likely not going to list the spot ether ETFs probably until closer towards the end of the year, because it would make perfect sense for them to do so. Because when we see the roll off from Bitcoin into Ethereum, I suspect that's when sometime around there is when we'll get the vast majority of the spot Ether ETFs listed. They could just be intentionally playing the waiting game for the right timing. That is assuming that they're aware of how these markets work. A lot of speculation there. But either way, I suspect it's either going to be July or it's going to be the end of this year. I don't know which, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. So PhilG inverse head and shoulders, you guys can see the target here, $302. Previous all-time high is 400. So we did get a close above this trend line with a little tiny hammer candle, which is bullish, but again, it's still below the EMAs. So I'm not too bullish on this. I mean, it's not really super high volume like some of these candles back here. So I would need to see more follow through on this. I'm not fully convinced that this hammer candle is actually the move that's going to send us higher. I would still argue that likely we probably will come down and test this support or somewhere around these candle lows. Again, that's between roughly about $37 to $55. And if the spot Ether ETFs take until November or December to get listed, then it's even more likely that this will come back down and test support. So from that level all the way to the high up there is a 928% move. GBAT, so we have a potential double bottom here. This, at one point, if I'm not mistaken, this was a hammer candle, but then we had some kind of, I don't know what the heck this is, but there was some kind of long wick up here that clearly got rejected off that trend line. You guys can see it. And also the previous channel. So, I mean, it's pretty close to the ideal buy zone here, which in my opinion is $8 to $10. Your swing high is at 32, but once again, I'll reiterate that it needs to get above the EMAs, and it also needs to get above this downward trend line here to be truly bullish. So still an accumulation at this point. I mean, it's coiling also between the support and the trend line, so it's going to make a move. Probably, it looks like maybe within the next month. Within the next month, we should see something happen with this. So just measuring from roughly about current prices to all-time highs, you'd be looking at 213% here. GLIV, this one is, so there's a potential inverse head and shoulders pattern here. This would be the right shoulder if it is to move up. The target's pretty much almost on sync with the all-time highs. So you have $84 and then you have $80. And then if it does not break out immediately and it comes back and retest support, you'd be looking at roughly about 12 to 14. If I was going to get in, I'd just wait for it to get to support and just sit on some cash. Fidelity does have a high yield savings account right now because the Fed funds rate is at all-time highs. So the savings is going to pay like 5.5%. I'd just be sitting on some cash, just waiting for the price to just dip into support. That's probably what I would do, or I would DCA in more aggressively the closer it got to the support. If I didn't think I could time it perfectly, that's just two ways to go about it. So 515% move here. G-Link, same thing, coiling between support and the trend line. So support is 67 to 84. The all-time high up here is 220. Do I think that G-Link or any of these other altcoin trusts are done running for this cycle? No, I do not. Like I said, we haven't really seen a real altcoin season yet. Bitcoin dominance has not actually started happening yet, which is not surprising because it's not supposed to happen until about the end of this year, but 199% move on that. Yeah, so as you guys can see, usually I don't show this in these videos, but Bitcoin dominance is still rising. It's when it starts falling off a cliff that the actual real true alt season happens. And once again, we have not seen that. So GSOL just kind of bouncing in between support and resistance here. At some point, it has to make a move. The apex of this move is going to be not too far off in the future. So as you guys can see, the apex of the move here would also be around the end of next month, which is kind of weird. Seeing some synchronicities here between trusts. So it either has to go up or down. If it goes up, I mean, you could be taking a look at maybe about a $170 move, maybe 230, somewhere in there. This one is pretty overextended. I would personally not be one to buy it unless it got back down here. So 166 to 200. There's a couple of reasons for that. It increases the profit, but it also decreases the risk potential as well. So from a trader's perspective, it's all about risk to reward. How much risk am I willing to take, and how much am I going to get in upside? Am I going to have like a 3-to-1 risk reward or 4-to-1? Meaning, like, let's say I put $100 in. Am I going to make $200 for $100 of risk? Am I going to make $400 for $100 of risk? Those are kinds of things that we think about. So 219% move here. Just to give you an idea, so the upside here would be 47% from the current price. However, if this thing just decided to just completely tank, it would be even greater downside. So in my opinion, the risk reward is just not worth it. So GXLM, it's retesting this trend line. I suspect once again, this flat line down here is going to be potentially where it bounces off of. So about $25. The swing high that we're looking for is 70. So from the flat line there to the swing high, 169% gain. Mano, this thing is, it's set up nicely. You had your resistance here, and now it's turned support, and we're getting pretty close to the coiling of the move. I had it drawn a little bit differently before. It was more like this, but you guys got to understand, sometimes that does happen in trading. This is not perfect. Okay, it's not going to be perfect every time. Sometimes there has to be adjustments. So I suspect this right here is probably going to be the ultimate. We'll probably see a big move next week in terms of whether this thing is going to go up or down. But it's at the end of the apex move, so if it goes up, it's probably going to head to $70. If it goes down, it's probably going to head to $12.25. I can't make any guarantees about that, but that's what it looks like to me. So just assuming it does go up from here immediately, it would be a 251% gain. Now, however, if it does not go up from here immediately, it breaks down, retests this lower line here, and then it goes up, you'd be looking at 481%. So Zcash, we got a nice little wick bounce, as you guys can see off this lower line here. I did tell you guys before that likely these candle tops here would be retested at some point, and that did happen. It was very short-lived, much faster than I expected. It did not stay down there very long. So still sitting below resistance, still sitting below the EMA, still sitting below the trend line. The thing I want to point out here is that this is a very bullish looking candle. I cannot remember for the life of me what the name of this candle pattern is, but it is a bullish pattern. So, and the other thing I want to point out too is this is also a green engulfing candle. So you can see this little red candle. The green body candle here is did close higher than the opening of the previous red candle. Okay. Because red candles open at the top and they close at the bottom, whereas green ones open at the bottom and they close at the top. So the green candle is bigger than the red one. That's a bullish engulfing candle. That's always a bullish sign. You can kind of see like this red one here, right? And then we got this big green one here. Well, what do you think happened after that? We got that green bullish engulfing candle above all these candle tops, and then boom, took off to the upside. So anyways, if for whatever reason we do get a retest of this line down here, which is what I'd be looking at because we still have too much resistance here, I'd be looking for a swing all the way up to this previous swing high, which is, again, roughly about 10.25. That's 213% gain. So anyways, this is the Grayscale Trust for the day. Hope you all enjoyed this content. I will be sure to keep you guys updated on what our opinions are on the presidential debate. There's going to be a lot of stuff to go over. A lot of it's going to probably be very controversial. A lot of it you guys may not like. All I ask is that you just come to the table with an objective mindset. Okay, just be completely open-minded about this. We've watched both Trump and Biden's campaigns play out in real time over the last 8 years, so we have some history here to go on. But we're just going to see things objectively as they are, and we're going to go with what makes the most sense. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.